Okay. All right. Let me hit the, yeah, I'm gonna hit it on a iPad and see if I can come in from the outside. Yeah. Yep.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay, Jason, it's playing. So we are good. One of those last minute when. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. We're all set to start the meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Sorry for the delay. We're having a little trouble here.
That's okay. I think I still might wait one more minute just to give our members another minute to join. So it's just fine.
Jason, is your closed caption on?
What? Great. Good. Well, I think I will get started now. I'm going to start with a script we read at the beginning of each meeting, and then we'll move into some of our committee business, and then we'll move on to our speakers and agenda for the evening. So, welcome to the March meeting of the Equity Advisory Committee. I am the co-chair, Leah Goldstein Moses. My other co-chair, Francisco Gonzalez, is not with us this evening. I want to acknowledge that COVID-19 is causing us to alter our usual procedures, and we have invited residents of the region to participate in this meeting virtually. The Met Council has determined it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person committee meeting due to the ongoing public health crisis. Accordingly, Met Council members will participate in this meeting, as will our committee members, online or by phone, and it will be conducted under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. Before we call this meeting to order, I have a few quick reminders about Webex and the virtual meeting process. And I'll say these slowly since we have some members that are still relatively new. So the first is please stay muted unless you are speaking. That will help us avoid getting background noise and feedback. If you're on your phone and computer, if you're using one device for visual and another for audio, please just unmute one device when you're speaking so that we don't get feedback. We are going to do votes by roll call. Tonight we only will be voting on our minutes, so we will do that by roll call. And community speaking. This is a public meeting. It's recorded, and the speaking helps that recording work well. You can use the chat only for things like noting that you have a question, or if you need technical support, you can place that in the chat and someone will help you. And then another way to let me know that you have something to contribute is to use the raised hand feature. On my layout of Webex, that's down at the bottom of my screen, and it looks like a little raised hand. In this meeting, as Nyambi put her email in the chat as well, and you can reach out to her with any questions. And so now I'll go ahead and call us to order. So good evening. Thank you for joining us. It's Tuesday, March 15th. It's beautiful out and we have a nice late evening, so that'll make our evening go well. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And Nyambi, do you mind doing our roll call?
Sure. right. You had mentioned, Leah, Francisco Gonzalez is not here today, is excused absence. Chai Lee.
Here.
John Pacheco. Michael Lucini. T. Way. Nicholas Jenkins. Anita Irvina Davis. Patrick Tashida. Edward McDonald. He did indicate he is excused absence as well. Andrea Jenkins. Leah Goldstein Moses.
Present.
Zabet Awad.
Present.
Melinda Lee. Jen Owens. Mary Ann Padua. Brianne.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi. Stephanie Sheeter. Betsy Sitkoff.
Here.
And Vanessa, and I wasn't keeping track of our count. Do we have quorum?
We have 9.
Okay, we will come back to the minutes later in the agenda. I'm sure there'll be a couple people that join us as we go on. The public that have contacted the council regarding topics that are not on our agenda.
I didn't receive any.
Currently, we have Brianne here representing the Housing Subcommittee, and I can give an update from the Operations Subcommittee. Brianne, would you like to go first, or would you prefer that I do so?
I can go. Good evening, everyone. A report from the Housing Subcommittee. We have set the second Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. as of about a half an hour for that time. So we've set that second Tuesday to do our business. So we're having the second of 2 so far, I guess, meetings on that, really talking about really big picture trends that are affecting the region, things that we maybe that are disruptors or big demographic trends. So it's really kind of high level analysis. The second thing is a regional policy plan update, and I see that on the agenda tonight. So really excited to hear about that from Leisa and Charles. Third is just recently back in December, we talked about an opportunity that we might have to discuss that we wanted to do in 2021 are still on our to-do list, particularly around convening around all the federal dollars that are coming down and just trying to understand what's flowing through the Met Council, what's flowing through for housing in particular. So still trying to figure out who the right speaker would be on that. So that's our update. If anyone else is on the call who's been, I don't see Edward or Michael, so probably not, but that's what I have.
Thank you, Brianne. I will give an update from the Operations Subcommittee. We met yesterday to brainstorm ideas for our work plan for 2022, clarifying the role that our committee plays and versus other groups, for example, the internal equity teams. We will be taking those ideas and developing a work plan via email over the next few days. And we will be meeting monthly as well. And we are going to be working on determining what day and time we will be meeting each month. Betsy was at our meeting yesterday. Is there anything you'd like to add, Betsy?
No, I think
At the Met Council, where they would like to be able to liaison with the EAC in some of those subcommittee formats where you can have a deeper conversation amongst our committee members and staff. So if anyone here is interested in joining a transportation subcommittee, please let me know, and I'll send that out as a reminder by email too, so that you don't have to just remember it at the end of this meeting, but I'll also ask that via email. Next on our agenda, we have Emmett, Mullen, and Amanda.
My colleague Amanda Lovelee and me with the committee. Our presentation should take 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up to any questions that you might have. And we did plan a couple, we can say has been really hard on all of us, our region, our country and world. But the regional park system has been a real respite. It's been a place where people have gone during the pandemic to feel sure of our region, and the 10 regional park implementing agencies are listed. The Metropolitan Commission, called the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission, that's like you, one of the advisory committees of the council, and an overarching oversight relationship. We're also have a partnership with them. Our little secret is that we don't own or operate an acre of land as the Metropolitan Council. It's those 10 regional park implementing agencies that do. And our focus is more on long-range planning. No, this is still mine. Sorry, Amanda. I'm fully clicking. Yeah. Here's a picture of it's a big system, 44 regional parks, 12 park reserves. We have 55 regional trails and a lot of acreage of lands. And we are in every county in the region. In 2019, when we last counted our annual visits or use of the system, we had over 63 million visits. So we have tremendous usage. We weren't able to get our intercept survey into the field in 2020 because of the pandemic. It just wasn't safe. But in 2021, we were successful in getting it in. And we don't have the results of it yet, but we're working on it. And I don't know this as a fact, but anecdote.
At the Met Council, and thanks again for having us tonight. We love to talk about parks. So this image, we work again, as Emmett said, with the 10 agencies to support the work that they do. And a lot of the work is around connecting people to parks, and agencies host all different kinds of programs to get people outdoors, to have fun, and with the goal of getting them to come back and play. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to pass back to Emmett, but don't worry, I will come back again.
Great. And I'll just emphasize on this picture, these are introductory experiences. What we find is our agencies are, through our conversations, are really our cross-country skiing. Next slide, please. I said earlier that we do regional park that we did in 2014 that we called, it was focus groups with people who were not park users, park use among communities of color. And it really helped explore what are some of those barriers to participation. And unsurprisingly, one of the top barrier by far was just lack of awareness, people not knowing that these opportunities are out there and available and are their opportunities. More recently, we did the Youth in Parks study, and this was a focus on youth and particularly youth of color. And the study was through a lot of different focus groups with outdoor groups. That's a rich study, and there's a lot of information about it on our website if you want a deeper dive into that. Next slide, please. Long-range planning, also called master planning, is one of the council's responsibilities. We have a review responsibility with the 10 regional park implement what we call an equity analysis. So it's tied with the public engagement, and it's an exploration for the park or trail that you're planning. Then you identify what are the communities that live in this travel shed that we really haven't done a good job, and then they propose, here's what we're going to do in order to meet those needs. It's not that linear of a process, planning as usual. Next slide, please. And here is Amanda's slide.
All right, so other equity highlights in the work that we do. So in outreach and funding, we have the Ambassador Program, which was again created out of that research project that Emmett talked about in 2014. And so the Ambassador Program was designed to help raise awareness of the regional parks and to make sure that everyone has access and feels safe and like they belong in the regional park system. There's been a lot of different projects that have come out of the Ambassador Program. The image that we're showing on this slide is that we're close to a regional park. We put these stickers along the way that said "Nature This Way." Again, at many of our stops, you might not know that there's a regional park within a 4 or 5 minute walk from where the transit stop is at. So we're really trying to link our different systems together. Another really exciting, I think one of the most exciting things that we've done in the last couple of years was a competitive equity grant program. And this program provides funding to regional park agencies, not only for capital projects, but also for programming, with the idea of strengthening equitable use for the regional trails for residents across age, race, ethnicity, income, and national origin and ability. I checked with Emmett right before this meeting, and he said we've so far have given out in the first 2 rounds of this program in the last 2 years over $2 million towards the equity grant program. So it's pretty exciting, and it's amazing to see the projects that are just starting to roll out. I would say this summer, some of them will start to hit the region, and it's really exciting to see the impact this program has had. Yes, Emmett.
Amanda, I was just going to mention, we have had really good participation from the Equity Advisory Committee on the review committee. Councilmember Chai Lee, who I know is here tonight, has sat on that committee. We have members of our Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission who sit on the review committee. And then we've had some participation from this committee too. So we appreciate that and are looking to do another funding round in the coming year. We're going to kick it off. So.
Yeah, we've appreciated the Equity Advisory Committee's help in shaping this program and coming up with what the requirements would be and in reviewing those grants. It's been really helpful. Next slide. And another exciting project that is kicking off in this current year is that has a huge equity focus is the historical cultural study. And so the historical cultural study to parks. And we're hoping that it will help people to understand the region's history as it relates to where we are today and what inequities have shaped the access and people's connection or sense of belonging to our regional. Starts to move forward. And it's a really exciting project is our questions. But again, if anyone has questions, please let us know first if you have any questions about the regional park system or any of those programs that Emmett or I talked about before we jump into the questions that we have for you.
Leah, is it okay to work through you, or should I can say, feel free to just ask us our questions, or if you want to start with the first questions and people.
So I do see council member that and call on people as we go.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Emmett and Amanda. My question is, you said our last count of the visitors was in 2019, and we're going to 4 years in. I was wondering, how often do we do these counts, and is there a way, an opportunity for us to do counts more frequently?
Yeah, Councilmember Lee, thank you for the question. We do counts annually. And this is an intercept survey that we do in partnership with those 10 agencies. They really have the staff that are in the field that are helping identify we do use park entrances, so they staff people there. And we weren't able to do it in 2020 because of the pandemic. Which was disappointing because honestly, 2020, I've never seen more people at the regional parks that I visited during 2020. And the nature of the work is I visit a lot of those parks and trails. But we did get a group out in 2021. So I'm really kind of curious as to how it went. I'll just add that we are exploring new ways to measure visitorship. And that's using cell phone data that's anonymized. You can't tell who the people are, but because there's someone collects the data and sort of cleans it and then offers it to the council. It's been used a lot in transportation planning, but we're exploring whether there might be opportunities to use it also in parks and trails planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I see Betsy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for this presentation. Really interesting. Could you just speak? Sounds amazing that you've given out over $2 million. How is that distributed? I mean, what makes it an equity grant proposal?
You want to start, Amanda, and then I'll jump in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the majority of the funding, and Emmett can correct me if I say anything incorrectly, but the majority of the funding that we give out to parks is based on a formula and it's not competitive. And so what's unique and different about the equity grant program is that it's competitive. And so the grants are reviewed by, again, it was equity focused. And I would say what we really appreciated about our jury is that they were really critical in the agencies. And I think in that first round gave really great feedback. And I would say the second round of grants was really inspirational due to the source had to go to our 10 agencies because that's who we fund through the Met Council. Chai Lee has kindly reviewed them, so he might have some great words of wisdom about it. It's been really great to see projects.
Thank you for the question. The only other thing I'll add is Amanda's first point was a really strong one, that the council, we actually have 5 funding programs or grant programs, and this is the one program that's competitive. All the other ones, we have kind of legislative funding formulas that tell us how the funds will be distributed. It's usually around the regional park system funding. That's one source of revenue for this program. The other source is the property tax revenue. And that is the one that's tied to capital only projects. Capital only projects are like innovation, better planning, the interpretation of programming. So thanks for the question.
I don't see other hands raised right now, but I did have a question, which is on equity grant programs. So as an example, you just mentioned the formula that's legislatively mandated. In that formula, are there any equity criteria that you use? For example, if the community has been historically underfunded, underserved, if the surrounding community has I don't know, whatever it might be, has are you asking the parks to consider any equity considerations in what they build in the bricks and mortar, like asking members of their community what they'd most like to see? I could think of, some communities might really want a place where they could gather for religious services on around what's being built that take into consideration equity.
Chair, thanks for the question. And I wanted to mention that our director, Leisa Barajas, is here. So Leisa, love to have you jump in if you want to fill out my answer. But the most exciting part of your question to me is how are we to use those other sources of funding? And the big change that happened about 3 years ago was in trail long-range planning. We created that equity analysis requirement, so a much greater intentionality in park and trail planning to better understand who's benefiting from what's being proposed. So when you move the equity analysis upstream to the planning, I think that we have a much greater opportunity to have an impact at that system level. It's not just project, equity impact or no equity impact, but this is a much more thoughtful way of doing planning. It also, I think, has required our 10 regional parks agencies, and we say 10 regional parks agencies because they're the 10 that are defined in law that we will work with, that they have done better planning in the sense that they're developing longer term relationships and better understanding of is directs funding really for the whole system, because that's those master plans are the basis on which how our system grows. So I hope that answered your question. And Leisa, if you want to add, go for it.
Can I add something to Emmett? I was just going to say the equity analysis tool, again, really helps agencies think about community engagement in a new way, like Emmett was kind of stating, and what do those partners want and need in that space before they even get to the place where they have the funding to, like you said, like build a new building and thinking about, like, is there a prayer space, or are there gender neutral bathrooms, or all those kinds of questions. They're thinking about them farther upstream instead of at the point where they're already designing the space. So I think it's been, sometimes it doesn't look as fancy as the equity grant program, but I think the equity analysis tool is a really good place to kind of raise awareness of if an agency hasn't done good engagement. Lots of questions are asked, and that tool helps raise the questions and kind of raise the weakness in a plan.
Thanks for mentioning that, Amanda. I think the ownership that the Metro feels of the equity analysis is high, and they take it very seriously, and the agencies have really taken note of that, and they've really responded well. But our direction is good, but we need to keep moving.
Thank you. I see Vanessa has her hand raised.
Hi, thank you guys. I have a quick question for Emmett, but I wanted to know what about outside organizations or nonprofits, organizations like that want to shift that paradigm and bring in people of color or people who have not had access, to different parks and different activities that they normally would not even think to participate in.
Vanessa, thank you for your question. It's a great question. The bureaucratic answer is we really only have the authority to grant funding to the 10 agencies. I know every one of our agencies have been developing better relationships with groups that they know have a more diverse makeup and can help them address barriers. And the thing that's been really exciting about the equity grant program is, as Amanda was saying, when we get proposals from the 10 agencies, the ones that often rise to the top, and not often, but are the ones that have those demonstrated partnerships with community groups, So those projects are the park system.
I think we've been trying to think creatively around similar solutions, and our current one is in the equity grant program to score partnership as a high thing. So if you don't have a partnership, you're not going to score as high, and your likelihood of getting funding is not as high. And as Emmett said, the best scoring projects, both rounds so far, we've only done 2 rounds, have had really strong partnerships, which then allows us to go back to the agencies, and when we present who's been awarded and what projects have been awarded and talk about why they've been awarded, I think again we're showing that deep question.
Thank you, guys.
Hello, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Marianne.
Yeah, so I want to know, because, you know, when I brought this up, or the deed program, and here in the structure of the deed, but you know, you guys weren't open to it. And as far as being a new, I was trying to bring new ideas, and it says here, the city of Beauvais was awarded $984,548 to assist with constructions of cities and utilities. A new acre, 20, okay, and that's just one of them. Now, and you know, 2 businesses will be 65 jobs. The park will also provide vacant lots and additional businesses. Now, that's just that one example. And other professionals opening in this program helps international trained healthcare workers. They have so many things that the grant will open to the community upon, to the whole members, couldn't be distributed as I requested, so that other people can look into and see if it's okay. I mean, you wanted new ideas. Well, there it was. And really, there's a lot of money that was being given away to communities and to small businesses, and especially for students and students of color, which is something that
Marianne.
you guys were mentioning.
Marianne, we
Yes?
can come back to committee business. We actually have an agenda item around committee business towards the end of our agenda. So
When you didn't give me an invitation to this meeting, so thank you very much. That's why I'm half an hour late.
I'm glad you're here now, and we can.
Well, yes, thank you very much for not inviting me, you know.
All right.
Yeah.
Amanda and Emmett, we are close to the end of your time, and one of the things I wanted to ask you is, are there any upcoming decisions you'll be making that the Equity Advisory Committee should be on the alert for, that would be helpful to bring an equity frame to and that we could be influencing?
One of the things that I'll just say is we are embarking on this regional park system historical cultural. It's a study, but it's something that I think will have an impact, and we're doing it in partnership with those teams so that it has an impact in terms of how are we telling this broader history, some of the history being you know, harder to hear because it hasn't been well known or understood. So so that's one idea. We will be back with another equity grant program, and there will be opportunities for your members to serve on that committee. So that is a really tangible opportunity to help direct how funds are allocated.
I know that we are thinking, how do we bring history alive, and how would you want your history to be shared in a park? And I think we'll come back with more questions for sure to this group. Cultural study, it was like a 10-year timeline. It won't be that long, but I think it could go on for a while, and I'm sure we'll be back with asking for your help and
Here, we look forward to those future conversations. Next on our agenda, we have Leisa Barajas, Charles Carlson, and Leisa Thompson from Community Development to discuss the Regional Plan 2050 and the Development Guide. So I will turn it over to you.
Members, we actually are not all from community development. I am the Director of Community Development, Leisa Barajas, and I'll let my co-sponsors introduce themselves as well.
I'm Leisa Thompson, spelled Leisa instead of Lisa, and I'm the General Manager of Environmental Services.
Good evening. I'm Charles Carlson. I'm the Director for Metropolitan Transportation Services, which is a group of the council that does kind of two different things. One is contracted transit metro mobility. That I'm actually new to that role. I came here to the council in December. I actually had previously served as the Director of Bus Rapid Transit Projects at Metro Transit for a number of years prior to then. So continuing service to the.
Thank you all. I'm going to share my screen, Greg, I hope, and to kind of think about opportunities that are in front of us to collaborate and work together on this major undertaking that we have at the council, which requires, and I think is important, that we have the three of us as executives co-sponsoring this effort. So I just want to do a quick check. Can you all see my screen all right? Is that sharing? Thank you. I see some head nods. Thank you. Okay, so really, like I mentioned, really wanting to establish that working relationship, and Amanda, we're talking about some of these efforts we have are multi-year efforts, and so we know that it can be hard to lose track of where we're at in that and how they all relate, and we're hoping to establish this relationship early on to shape. Just wanted to really introduce ourselves and get to know you, have some initial questions for you, really high level. In April, we'd love to be able to come back to you at your invitation, of course, to talk more with our project teams about the work we have currently underway, and really look for your direction on other future engagement and conversations with you as well. So with that, I'll just give a super high level overview. There's a lot that goes into regional planning, and I don't want to bombard you with tons of information, but just at the high, this is kind of our responsibility, why we were organized, and all of the different things we bring to the table as an organization to really help guide and direct the growth and development of the region. I just highlighted some of the key elements in green about what we're responsible for around orderly and economical development. But really in that blue, that highlight at the bottom there, that we're looking at, future developments that will have an impact, talking about transportation elements that Charles was mentioning, of course, our wastewater system. Like these are our key levers that we are responsible for. But anything that's going to affect that growth and development in the region. I'm going to turn it over to Leisa Thompson now for these next couple of slides.
Thank you, Leisa. And thank you for having us so we could jump right in with the three big questions for us. Where are we today? Where do we want to go? And how do we want to get there? I first want the March 9th council meeting where our vision team presented some additional information about the where we are today questions. So if you want to jump right into a little more detail, you can look at that recording from March 9th council meeting. I'd have to say that at a high level, we've always been seeking transformation, and what we really require us to follow different roads than we've traveled. We have complex challenges, and the complexity with the understanding that it's a discipline, just like innovation and leadership. And so embracing complexity comes down to mastering co-creation in large groups. Mastering co-creation in large groups. You're going to see that throughout our process and our engagements. Next slide. Here's a bit of detail about how we are transforming our processes. While the council is working to implement, we also recognize that we have to be able to do it internal to our organization first. So we're engaging and collaborating internally, and that's what's led to the structure to guide this 2050 regional development guide process. So we have a staff team that consists of 3 groups. We have co-sponsors, which I am one of, along with Leisa, who you just heard from, and Charles planning efforts. We're really focusing in on bringing all of our divisional parts together to make a whole as we approach the process. And we think that's a real key change in how we've approached the planning today and moving forward versus the past. The integration team members help coordinate across work areas, and they are working together. Some of the project teams will now be highlighted by Charles Carlson, who's also a co-sponsor.
Thank you, Leisa. So this slide gets into a little bit more of the what of the plan and the path forward kind of across the next few years. And you know, in green text on the objective that you could begin to think about and will continue to engage around as this project moves forward overall. So this has been in development. 20 started last year with a look at what are the pressing issues facing the region, what are the big topics that we're going to be talking about a lot over the next 30 years. And so a number of different pieces go into that. Where we are right now is put that into the context of, well, what do we want the region to look like 30 years from now? What are the values we want to uphold as we develop an idea of what the region could be? And then to turn that into different contexts and different scenarios. So this could set up a number of different conversations. There's already been reference to some of the scenarios work development that subcommittee of EAC is engaged in. But really, this is sort of intending to show the general plan for this development guide over the next few years, and then up top, think of it as more of a blank canvas for where the EAC we looked at in scoped a bit more detail in 2021. Equity was a key topic area. Climate, a growing focus, I think, within regional planning. Public health, infrastructure, resilient talked about. You know, really what we're doing now is taking pieces of that, as I said, and forming a vision and values work around that. The council heard a update on the regional vision and kind of the process toward regional vision, and asked us and tasked us with that. And you know, don't think that tonight is the chance to give that input tonight. I think it's really about meeting or reacquainting yourselves with Leisa and me as executive leaders of three significant business areas of the Met Council associated with this plan. We'd like you to think of developing the plan. And the last thing I'll say on this slide is it is a long process. So bits and pieces along the way, you know, ultimately toward an adoption a couple years from now, or even more than a couple years from now. So quite a bit of work along the way, but quite a few opportunities to continue to shape and reshape and incorporate the work that we're pursuing in this project, and then to report back to you as well. So we can go to the next slide. And this is really just to kind of kick off the thought process, and certainly we'll welcome discussion, but you know, again, it's the first of a number of things. So we want to hear from the EAC about how you'd like to contribute within the development guide. So what are the areas of interest that you have? You know, so within the overall chart, all of the work that you are planning to do as a committee this year. So we don't want to kind of take over the committee with the 2050 plan. There's a number of different areas, but we want to be that idea of, you know, and as it relates to inequity or reduction and elimination of inequity. And so this slide on here, there's this tool, this IAP2 spectrum that I'm certainly recall from grad school, and it's not to like choose one of these levels. When I look at this, I think about the areas where I might just want to be on the I want to know what's areas where I really want to have a key hand in deciding something. And I think that's what we're involved in this 2050 plan. What are the areas that you want to know what's going on, but you have other focuses and priorities this year and next year as well. And then I think the other thing I'll mention is that, we like to think we come up with good questions to ask and good questions to ask our staff and the region, but what are the questions we're not thinking of? What are the questions we're not asking ourselves? Additional perspectives and additional voices, I think, is essential to the long range future of the region. Looking for, as Leisa said, it's a co-creation effort in a large group, and looking to enhance this process with the council and with you. So with that, I'll pause and we can begin discussion, or maybe I'll turn it back to Leisa to mention any other steps.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charles and Leisa. I just wanted to close our portion and open up for conversation by just going back to what I had mentioned earlier, that we're hoping to return to you at your invitation in the next month or coming month as your agenda is free, to engage with you around developing the vision and values as part of this process. Is really the foundational element. I think one of the other places that I would also invite your feedback or input on, or what else or how else can we help you participate in this process week of all of the things that the regional plan covers, and there's a lot more in there. There are materials that we can share offline and that you can review at your leisure as well. And as Leisa mentioned, we've provided a lot of updates to our council as well. So we're also happy to share sort of a menu of sorts, if you will. So really here to have that conversation with you about how you'd like to engage and how we can support you in that. Thank you.
I think we will manage the conversation like we did before. I will watch for hands to go up, or if people have something that they want to ask, I will call on you. I think I see Marianne, you have your hand up. Go ahead. We don't hear you yet. I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And what I have a question of is, do you still have the policy for people with disability when they miss 3 pickup times due to unforeseen emergency reasons? It's not acceptable. It would be to have them not to be picked up for up to a full month.
Is that is that a question about Metro Mobility?
Yeah.
I don't know if this group will be prepared to answer it. If they have an answer to that question, they can. Otherwise, we can note that question and route it to the people that can answer it.
Yeah, because there is Metro Mobility. That's been a long time. What do you call that? Issue with people with disability. They have certain things that happens to them while they're waiting, because sometimes the waiting time, it takes an hour to an hour and a half, and really it's okay for them to once to be picked up. They have to be there, and the Metro Mobility is not allowed to wait even 5-10 minutes, and then it becomes a no show, no call for them, and it's up to 3 times, and then they will not be able to pick them up for a full month as a penalty.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Councilmember Lee, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, sorry, Marianne. I'll make sure that I'll personally ask Andy Stresak on this staff to get back to you. In particular, and especially if you have the contact names of the friends that are affected by this issue, and for us to start envisioning 20, 30 years out, it's really important that we cut down the silos between our departments, and for the leadership of the different departments to come together and not work in silos is really important. And also, I'm just speaking for myself as a council member. In 9 months, a new election will bring different results or whatever results they may be. Just speaking for myself, the current slate of council members may or may not be back here, whether or not one of us decides to reapply.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Brianne, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks. And thanks for coming and asking. And, as the Housing Subcommittee, this is something to talk about the values and the vision. I think that's would be totally in line. It makes a lot of sense. I see the subcommittees being more into that involve, collaborate space. It's really difficult in these meetings. This is way more of an informed space, which is good too. But I think now that our subcommittees have been fully formed and have work plans, I think we're well positioned to be able to do a little bit more of that work in committee. And then Councilmember Lee's point, the council members on this committee are having the participation of the council members, being able to carry the values and the discussions to that decision-making level. That's really where the EAC is going to be able to be as far on the right as possible, is through the council members. So I just encourage the council members, and obviously future council members too, to really carry the message of the EAC as we're talking about this in committee and as a broader EAC directly to the Met Council. And so I think one specific area is to be a place where the EAC could really add value in reviewing it or helping formulate it. We're as residents more connected with the community directly, and so I think that might be. Thank you, and I look forward to future conversations. And I think the subcommittees could be a lot of.
I would like to add something, and then I'll see if any of our other members have comments before we wrap up. The first is that I got to participate in some of the scenario planning workshop, the first round, a few weeks ago. And one of the things that I noticed in that first round, that members from cities in the region, city managers from cities in the region, people with official positionality around what those scenarios would be, and didn't include very many community members or people with an equity focus way around, rather than the scenarios and ideas emerging from community members and people. Committees being fully operational and places for discussion. I think our full EAC could be a place in the past, and what might that look like? I would love our committee to be able to inform those vision and values and really see then our agenda.
Great name.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is some committee business. And I have here a few different announcements to make, but I also want to respond to what Marianne raised earlier. Marianne mentioned that she didn't get the meeting link. And one thing that I'd love to request from staff is that we do have the meeting invite as a calendar invite, but calendar invites are not a very accessible way to connect with the meeting link. So I'm wondering if
Yes, we will update.
that Francisco and I have requested is a way for our committee to be able to communicate more easily with each other. Now is to say, here is something, staff, can you send it out to our full committee? And that what you'd like to see.
Well, the thing is, at first, I requested to have the to have part of the agenda. But then since the agenda was already booked, so then you gave me 5 minutes. So then you suggested that if there's stuff to be emailed ahead of time, then this way they can read it. So then that's why and then I'll just have some 5 minutes to explain some of the things where it happened that I even have less than 3 minutes of my presentation. So, and then consequently, you actually did not email them, and so nobody got to read anything ahead of time. And then nobody has had any clue what I was talking about. On top of that, I was cut off my less than 3 minutes of a presentation. So that was very just and very, it just went off. That's it.
Yeah.
And so nothing happened. The things that I wanted to talk about, it was about housing, it was about transportation, and really everything about it was about the things that we do. And so I'm sorry that you guys don't think there was anything that I was trying to I'm not trying to impose on a lot of things, but it was something I was bringing to the community to do something that you guys asked me to. It didn't work out. So
Okay.
that's that.
So I see a 612 number, and I'm not sure if that is someone who wants to say. That I do want to make is that we at our standing committee meeting, which is the week following our EAC meeting and is a less formal environment, we do hear and reflect on ideas we've had for our agenda and set priorities for the agenda for the following month. We have prioritized things that are aligned with our work plan items, our priorities for the EAC, which are housing, transportation, and the operations of the EAC, and things that are sharing that information with the EAC. And again, I do hope to continue to collaborate with staff to figure out a better. I have a couple other committee business items, and then we're going to move into reports from the standing committee. Some input about the bylaws. I shared the input that we received out in an email, so you will see that on the April meeting with the final. Brianne and I gave a presentation to the full council as a whole, so Councilmember Lee, Councilmember Sterner, and other members of the Met Council, AC, and our work. We had a very robust discussion after that presentation. In the presentation, we ended with several recommendations, including to expand the influence, including appreciation that we'd given such a direct presentation with some feedback and requests, and that our requests would be considered in the management team meeting following that presentation. If you'd like to see the are here to talk about what's been going on in the other standing committees of the council, and I am particularly curious about the management committee and if.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Lee. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
yeah, thanks, Leah. So we actually haven't president. You get lost in the days. I believe the management meeting happened right before the council meeting, and so there hasn't been a cycle between yet. So because that was all just last week. But for my general updates from both community development and management, there are two interesting items. I think program we're launching this June 1st. It's basically into neighborhoods that do not have a high poverty rate and have more resources, whether they're higher performing schools, and also the preference right now is for children, families with children under the age of 13 in areas over 30% of poverty. And so that is an interesting new pilot that will be beginning on June 1st. The other thing in management committee is from the February 23rd meeting, as part of the $3 million money kind of, I don't know how else to say it. It's like a one-time pot of money that we get to pilot programs. And if you look up the agenda of the management meeting, it's called the Thrive Initiative. And it's a funky name, audit. There's kind of, I guess, formally there's no other better name for it, but see, to better understand our spending trends, and so that we can better discover any gaps related to spending with small businesses, minority-owned and women-owned business ventures, and within our processes, so that we can have the management data agenda under Thrive Initiative ideas.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. As you are contributing to shaping that equity audit item, I hope you'll consult the resolution passed by the EAC back in October or November. I think it was October. With Councilmember Sterner, would you like to give an update?
Sure, thank you, Chair. And just to let you know, I'm out of town, so I don't have lots. I've been on the meetings in that, but I'm a little bit further from large prepared minutes. But on the Environment Committee, our equity, we're still picking it up. I just want to maybe report on our Environment Committee where we've done some COVID water testing, where we're able to see where the COVID virus is a couple weeks before, and what our testing has been adopted by, where we're having more hits on the environment page talk about COVID testing. It's almost double what our overall hits are on our Metropolitan Council page. So it's been really well received. And part of that, if I also would feel it's a matter of getting equity and environmental issues where it's good for everyone, and where we're seeing where the water comes in. And I know we're big on trying to make sure, which our meeting is coming up next Monday, so we'll be more apt on that. But I know we're looking for like people who want to test water in their lakes and streams, and that there's a lot of people that are retiring that aren't doing it anymore. It's a volunteer position, but it's a way to make sure your water in your area is well needed. So that's something, if anyone on the committee would want to step up to that or me to go, I can kind of forward the information on that from all the different programs that are available. But right now, that's pretty much all I have right now for the equity. But I'll Thompson reported tonight. She's chair of one of our committees, and you heard also from the Transportation Committee. So I think it was great having them on tonight, and you'll get more engagement as well. So thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Appreciate being here.
Thank you for that update. I believe we have quorum the last month.
Sure, I can do a quick roll call. Francisco Gonzalez, Ty Lee,
Here.
Philip Sterner,
Here.
John Pacheco,
Save audio highlight.
the 61229 number, if you could mute, if possible. Michael Lucini, Nicholas Jenkins, Anita Irvina Davis, Patrick Tashida, Edward McDonald, Vanessa Jenkins, Jen Owens, Brianne Rothstein,
Here.
Stephanie Sheeter,
Here, it's Scheider.
Scheider, my apologies.
No problem.
Betsy Sitkoff,
Here.
Kristen Stacy,
Here.
we have quorum.
Great. We will go back and do our approval of the minutes. May I have a motion from one of our members to approve the minutes from February 15th?
I will motion to approve the minutes from the February meeting.
Brianne seconds.
Thank you, Kristen and Brianne. Is there any discussion about the February 15th minutes? All right, we will vote on approval. And Nyambe, I think we have to do that by roll call again. So if you do roll call again, and this time when you hear your name, you can vote yes for approval or no for not approval.
All right. Francisco Gonzalez, Chiley,
Yes.
Philip Sterner,
Yes.
John Pacheco, Michael Lucini, T-Way, Nicholas Jenkins, Anita Arvina Davis, Patrick Tashida, Edward McDonald, Vanessa Jenkins,
Yes.
Leah Goldstein Moses,
Yes.
Zabet Awad,
Yes.
Melinda Lee, Jen Owens,
Yes.
Mary Ann Padua,
Abstain.
Brianne Rothstein,
Yes.
Stephanie Scheider,
Yes.
Betsy Sitkoff,
Yes.
Kristen Stacy.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. And the last item on our agenda is announcements. And Councilmember Lee, I think you have an announcement to start, and then we'll see if others do as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So this Friday, March 18th, is the annual Metro Transit Driver Appreciation Day. And so if you happen to be out in community using any of the Metro Transit bus services, please thank your drivers personally. Thank them for their service to us, the regional planning body that gives so many great services to the city. As you reminded earlier with today's staff presentations, we do more than run buses and trains. We fund regional parks. We operate wastewater management. But buses and trains are one of our most visible services. And so please don't forget to show your appreciation for all of our drivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Marianne, looks like you have a announcement. Can you come off mute so we can hear you?
I have a question. So did we have a quorum in the beginning?
We did not. Councilmember Sterner.
Yes, I just was going to give a announcement that on March 7th, on St. Patrick's Day, there will be occurrence, and that it's other way that we, Metro Transit
Oh, Councilmember Sterner, I heard St. Patrick's Day and transit, and that's about it. So I don't know what the
Sorry.
announcement is.
Phil, sorry, you're cutting in and out. I think you're trying to remind folks that Metro Transit is giving free bus rides on St. Patrick's Day as a courtesy from, I believe it's Coors Light.